We're going to start by making 6 of these, but I'm going to show you how to do one. And we're going to start by taking this 4x4 piece of paper, which you can get from me. Come on up. We're going to fold it into 4 quadrants. So fold it in half, and then fold it in half again. And so we're going to end up with a quarter of the original piece of paper. So I'm going to start drawing shapes in here, and I'm using my pencil, and I am going to create shapes that are closed. So a shape is an area enclosed by lines, but the shape must be closed in. I'm going to encourage you guys to keep your shapes abstract. In fact, they must be abstract. That means they don't represent something. I don't want a shape of a kitty. I don't want a shape of an airplane. I don't want a shape of anything that has a name, including names of shapes. So squares, rectangles, the shapes that have names tend to be some of the least interesting shapes. So I'm just kind of drawing some random shapes here, and I'm trying to be minimally creative by choosing shapes that do not have names. I'm letting some shapes float in the center of the square. I'm letting some shapes come to the edge of the square. I've got 2 shapes in here right now, and I'm thinking about balance. I'm thinking, what else could I add to this, and where should I add it? And I'm already noticing this little right angle right here. So I'm gonna pop another right angle there, and maybe I'm gonna match this curve over here too. So I'm trying to make decisions about the new shapes I'm adding to the design based on the shapes that I already have. And now I'm seeing this empty space over here. I'm thinking about balance. I want to get this whole square kind of evenly filled with shapes. Shapes of a variety of different type and a variety of different size. So I'm going to add one more. I'm going to let this one go off to the edge too. In fact, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking I want to add a little contrast to this as well, and I'm going to add a circle, even though I said don't use shapes that have names. I'm going to throw a circle in there, and truth be told, that's a square as well. So I'm looking at my design and I'm thinking, is there anywhere it still seems a little empty, and my eye is being drawn to this corner right here. So I'm thinking, what else could go there? And I'm going to keep this simple, and I'm going to keep in unity with the design that I already have. So I'm thinking maybe another right angle type shape here, and in fact I'm gonna change that a little bit, and I'm gonna extend this line out this way too, so to get again a little bit more variety in there. Now I'm already noticing that one of my shapes, this shape in here, this space, might be a little too small, and here's how I can tell. I'm going to use my pencil eraser as the gauge for how close together is too close. I don't want any shapes closer than the width of a pencil eraser together. So I notice this is too close. I'm going to erase this and give it a little bit more space in there, and you'll see why later. We'll talk about this a lot later. But remember, this is a drawing now, but this is going to be a carving later. And the tools we're going to use to carve are not going to be able to get into a space that tight very easily. I notice this area is a little tight as well. So why don't I actually change that also. I'm going to just round that out, I think, just to add a little bit more, something different. Okay, so I've got I think what is going to be a good design once I trace this out. So things I have done, I have not repeated any shapes in this design. I have used a variety of different shapes, both a variety of sizes of shapes and a variety of types of shapes. I've tried to be original with my shapes. I've tried to choose mostly shapes that don't have names, and I've definitely kept my shapes abstract. I don't want any of these shapes to be recognizable things or representations of real things that are in the real world. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to decide which are positive and which are negative. Remember, the negative shapes are the shapes that are going to be carved. The positive shapes are the shapes that are left behind that are going to be high, not carved. So carved and not carved. So shaded and not shaded. So it really doesn't matter. I've made sure not to have any of my shapes touching. I've made sure all my shapes are closed, so the lines are all enclosed, whether they touch the edge of the square or they close themselves. And I'm going to go ahead and start shading. And I'm going to decide that I think this shape right here should be negative. So I'm going to start shading this guy, and I'm just hatching. Those are the hatch marks are those lines I'm making diagonally in the shape, back and forth to fill the shape up. I'm trying to be very careful, be very smooth, stay in the lines. I know. And fill the shape evenly. I'm going to actually cross hatch now, and that's where I'm going to turn my paper at a slight angle and change the angle of my hatch marks. So that's cross hatching. You may have learned this in your drawing and painting class if you took that. And the more cross hatched layers of shading I do in a shape, the smoother and more even the shading comes out. It's really important that I do shade smoothly and evenly, because that's going to help my eye judge the design later. When I say judge the design, our eye is going to be telling us if the square is mostly shaded, mostly not shaded, or if it's perfectly balanced. So another way to say that would be mostly negative, mostly positive, or an even balance between the two. So shade each shape very smooth, and as smooth and evenly and consistent as possible. You want all shapes to be shaded the same value or the same darkness. So I'm done shading. Now I'm ready to go trace this out. Okay guys, so I'm at the window now. So I'm going to multiply this quadrant times 4 and create a lot of repetition. I'm going to do that by tracing. I'm going to use the window with the light behind it to help me. You can use any of the windows on the side of the room or at the back of the room. Okay, so what I just did is trace the shaded sketch onto this other side, and now I'm going to trace that out to the other half. So here I go again. Now open it up, and I have my traced out design. Now it's still only shaded in this one section, and I accidentally tore my paper. But now I'm going to go back to my seat, and I'm going to shade the rest of these shapes as well, the same way I did here. So do a good job shading, and you need to have 6 of these. So get 6 of them done, and when you do, come up and we'll walk through the evaluation process. So get some peer feedback, complete that form, and we'll talk about picking the best one.